Hey listeners, it's Paul Andriola here. Why not join our community at Small Cap Discoveries, where we offer our members direct access to some of the best microcap investment opportunities available. Our members are getting access to premium microcap financings, research reports, and direct access to management. Sign up today at www.smallcapdiscoveries.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today on our call, we have the CEO, Greg Wong, and the CFO, Travis Campbell from RIWI Corp to give us another update. RIWI trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol RIWI and also on the OTC under RWCRF. The company is currently trading at 86 cents with 18 million shares outstanding, or about a $15.5 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Thanks a lot, Trevor. Yeah, great to have Greg back. Travis, I don't think we've ever met before, so nice to meet you today. RIWI, we've had you on a couple times. Great to see numbers out yesterday that show that you're back to profitability. And we had a couple other updates prior to that. I think a contract announcement about 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. So real happy to have you on here. Can't wait to get an update. But before we even get to an update, why don't you remind everybody, especially those that are new to the story, what RIWI is all about?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Paul. And we'll ask Travis to introduce himself in just a few minutes. But so just what RIWI does, we are a technology and a market research firm that enables our customers to collect data anywhere around the world using a patented technology called Random Domain Intercept Technology, or RDIT, which is really a way of intercepting people online through any device in any country in the world that has internet and asking them questions, collecting their sentiment on a variety of topics, from political, social political, macroeconomic. It could be, things on international development, health, and a whole bunch of reasons. We have 3 different revenue streams. We have a recurring revenue where we collect ongoing data on various topics, such as our geopolitical risk data, our Compass data series, where people will subscribe and get access to that data and that analysis on an ongoing basis. We have transaction revenue. Transactional revenue is revenue where our platform dynamically matches survey respondents with survey marketplaces. And then we have project-based revenue, where we work with very large either government agencies, NGOs, financial service firms, healthcare firms, academics, or packaged goods retailers to collect information on a topic that they care about, potentially provide the analysis and provide them a report. So that's what RIWI does today.
Perfect. And like I said, we just announced, I think it was Q3 numbers yesterday. So return to profitability, nice healthy growth in top line. I think it was 47-48%, somewhere along those lines. Maybe talk a bit about what's happening, like what's caused the increase in revenue. Maybe describe some of the revenue, because I think we've seen some new contracts come in, and anything you can sort of give us as far as color around Q3.
Sure. So if you look at Q3, our significant growth was in our transaction revenue. And again, our transaction revenue is us dynamically matching survey respondents to survey marketplaces. We said a couple times in some of these calls that our growth on the transactional side is limited only by our supply. So right now there is essentially, for our purposes, unlimited demand. And it is the more we can get survey respondents, the more supply we can create into our platform, and the more correct and good supply we can create, the demand is there. We are fulfilling less than 1% of the demand in our system on the transactional side today. So that area has grown a lot for 2 reasons. One was we did increase our supply, and 2, our matching algorithms and our all the technology and all the secret sauce behind that, again, figures out who's the right people to go to the right survey in the right country at the right time at the right price. We've been tweaking and improving those algorithms. So that was really the significant growth. Our recurring revenue is fairly stable. We had a small decrease versus last quarter, a significant increase versus last year, and a small decrease versus last quarter was strictly an accounting issue that Travis can talk about. And our project revenue was, fairly stable, a little bit down, but overall fairly stable. So that was really what drove our revenue. by the way, there was no revenue from our big contract that we announced a couple of weeks ago in Q3. So the new contract will be from Q4 going forward, but I also do want to just manage expectations. The Q4, that large contract we signed, while it's a brand new contract, it's really the continuation of a contract that had expired at the end of October. So it's a new contract, but it's not going to be all net new revenue. There will be a small uplift, but it's essentially, if you think about it from a net customer retention perspective, it's, I don't know, 110% net customer retention. It's not like a 100% new revenue. It's maybe it might be a small uplift. Travis, do you want to talk a little bit about some of those things?
Yeah, for sure. So the issue that we had in Q3 with the recurring revenue was essentially a small accounting error that I uncovered. We had recognized the revenue on that contract too soon, effectively. So we had a small drop in September, which will carry over into October. But the new contract does kick in at the start of November, and it's actually a larger uplift than 10%. I think it was about 38% higher than the old contract. So a decent amount of growth there in the recurring revenue line.
Mm-hmm. Well, fantastic. I really caught something you said there, that your constraints are more of how you can get access to supply rather than demand. How do you improve your supply to meet some of this demand? What do you have to go through to do that?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a challenge. So we need to find really good survey respondents. Today, the majority of our survey respondents, we're using a method called fresh sample. So it's not like we have a panel of people that we go back to again and again and again. Part of the value and the data quality that we provide is we're getting a new set of people that are not professional survey respondents. They're not looking to say, oh, well, it's Procter & Gamble who's asking the question, so I'm going to answer favorably for anything for them, right? So these are much more fresh sample, people that we're intercepting online, people that we're bringing from various places. So the way we need to increase our sample is we need access to more domains. So being able to get more part domains and that we can bring under our service. We work with more publishers. We're working with more apps where we can potentially even put ads, or on the incentivization side, where, let's say you're playing Bejeweled and you want another jewel, and instead of paying $2 for it, you can enter a survey. So on our respondent marketplace, the more publishers, the more apps, the more places that we can get into and build relationships where we can capture those end customers, the better. Today, we are primarily working with aggregators of all those different publishers. In the future, one of the things that we plan to do is go directly to a number of the app owners, publishers, because essentially what we end up doing is kind of the middleman. We end up building much deeper relationships with individual communities, and we end up getting higher margin and higher quality respondents. So those are some of the plans that we're looking at as we move into the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. So what, if anything, are you doing differently or new, or what's the different feel or vibe of the business? It certainly feels different than it was this time last year. I mean, are you more aggressively out there selling? Is it new products that are driving this? What is new in the business right now?
So, our business has changed a lot. If you go back a year ago, we were essentially a project-based business, right? And we started the process at the end of 21, right, to start to become a more diversified business, to go from doing only one-off projects where we had to resell every year 100% of that plus more if we wanted any growth, to building these recurring products, to having, and then we made the acquisition of Research on Mobile last year that then gave us also this transactional revenue. So what's going different is, one, we have a focus on how do we find more recurring products, more recurring revenue, and actually invest with partners to grow that. So that's one area. We have our transactional revenue, where you saw the substantial growth, which is a completely new business line that is not traditionally RIWI, but that complements us and feeds our full service business, but also is its own standalone business. So we've been really working on optimizing it, finding more supply, finding more what we call demand side partners, so people that actually, marketplaces that actually buy our supply. So there's been a strong focus on that. And then on the project side, which is still, I'd say, we have not actually fixed that area of our business. It's still a little bit weak. We've got some great customers. We've got some great relationships with some really impactful. And part of the identity of RIWI, to be honest, is tied to a lot of that project revenue. Because that project revenue is often in international development, in global public health, with NGOs. It's doing work around things like migration, women's rights, water safety, food safety, a lot of things in developing worlds and developing countries where people need support, where there's programs to help them achieve a better life. And so a lot of what we do and where we started and the DNA of the company is in that area. And so we're really focused. We brought in a new GM in, I think just about a month and a half ago, to really lead that practice. And we're also focused on really identifying, trying to find strong salespeople and have really good relationships in specific customer segments that help us revitalize that business. Mm-hmm. That is the part of the business where, from my perspective, we are still incredibly weak. It is the weakest part of our story today, that we know what we need to do to fix it, but it requires a certain amount of effort and time, and we are working on it. I'm pretty confident that will be solved over the next 6 to 9 months, but it does take time, because even as we bring in the right people, there's a 6 to 9 month sales cycle. Mm-hmm. But that is the area that is always going to be a little bit more choppy because it's project based. Mm-hmm. But we are really trying to focus on very specific customer segments, highly focused, with specialized talent that really understand those segments and work from people that come from those customer segments. We are not interested in hiring generic market research salespeople, for example. Mm-hmm. Right? We're hiring context sensitive. So if you're selling financial services, you should understand the difference between a buy side and a sell side organization. You should understand the difference between macro versus quant based versus fundamental, right? And how do they buy? What do they look for? What are the metrics they're using? So we're really focused on trying to do a lot of those things and find the right people. Mm-hmm. And actually, there's a lot of people on this call. If anyone knows really good salespeople, I'm going to put my pitch out there, that understand how to sell data in very key customer segments. I would love an introduction, because the hardest part is finding good salespeople. As we all know, a halfway decent salesperson can sell themselves for a little bit, and it takes 3 to 6 to 9 months before you find out if they're good or not. If people we can get through references is always an advantage.
Yeah, we've got a lot of smart people in our network, so I'd be surprised if we can't find you somebody. At this point, I want to remind everybody that's listening, if you've got some questions you'd like me to ask Greg or Trevor, just please, or Travis, please use the chat function, and we'll make sure the question gets asked. So, apart from salespeople, what other resources? I mean, you're still a relatively small company. You do have cash, but what other kind of resources do you think, to sort of fulfill what your plans are here over the next year or two?
So there's 3 segments of resources that we are going to be hiring on a very immediate basis. Right. One is, of course, the salespeople we've talked about, where we need to grow the high quality sales team. 2 is we need a product manager that's going to help drive our platform strategy, the specific requirements, working with customers as we grow, and really just helping drive what I'll say the technical side. And then we are just completely under-resourced when it comes to product developers. So just Java, React, a whole bunch of different, whether they're front end, back end, database, data engineers, the people that can really focus on building the platform. We have a significant need. Travis actually just hired someone who starts next week, who's a corporate recruiter for us. So, if you look at our numbers, you'll see the last 2 or 3 quarters, and Travis, keep me honest here, but I think we had $30,000 to $40,000 in each of the last quarters for headhunter fees.
Yeah, at least 100,000 in the last year.
So over $100,000. We're able to hire our own recruiter to at a lower cost than that, where we have full-time dedicated that will be able to handle all the different hires we need. Because as we project out for next year, if we use a headhunter for everything, our costs will be significantly better. So we've hired a corporate recruiter to help us in that recruiting process on a go-forward basis.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to financials a little bit. What I always loved about this business is the sort of the high sort of margin nature of this products or suite of products you're selling. You talked about contract based, you talked about transactions, stuff like that. Where's the real sweet spot? Where's the sort of the best margins you're getting, and what do you see sort of in the future? Is it something that's going to continue, or how do we look at sort of that gross margin picture?
So I think you need to break it down, and ask Travis to hold me honest here, but I think you need to break it down into the three different segments. So when you think about the recurring revenue, long term, that is by far the best margins. So as you sign a customer, or we develop a data set, I'm going to use our Compass data series. I think I've talked about it a few times, but we develop it, we start collecting the data. There's a fixed cost for us to collect it. Every incremental customer increases the revenue and the gross margin, because the only incremental cost for a new customer is the sales commission. Right, so the actual revenue is fantastic. Then we have our project-based revenue. On a one-off basis, generally, our project-based revenue has very good margins. And again, it will depend a little bit on the customer profile. So in international development, in finance, we will deal somewhere between 65 and 80% gross margin on any one of those deals. In academic, it might be more like 50 to 55%. So but no matter what, the gross margins are pretty significant in all those deals. But what's also really important about the project-based revenue is 80% of our project-based customers buy again. So that's a really important thing to think about, because while it's project-based revenue, we've had several customers that are buying from us year after year after year. So one of the things we're trying to do, and we're trying to do this without eating and cannibalizing our own margins, but how do we just lock them in up front for 2 or 3 years, right? So we can actually turn it into recurring revenue. We have the full predictability without having to eat the margins. I can always incent them and say, hey, we'll give you a 20% discount and you sign for 3 years. But if we have an 80% retention rate on those type of customers, to give a significant discount just will reduce our profitability. So we're trying to figure out that balance, right? And then on the third revenue stream for us was the transactional revenue. I believe we're in the 40 to 45%.
Yeah.
So 40 to 45% gross margin, and that's pretty stable. I would not forecast the gross margins changing on, to be honest, in 2024 in any of those areas. I think they're going to be pretty stable.
Gotcha. Now, in the past, Greg, you've talked about M&A opportunities. How should we look at that going forward? Are you still looking? Is the pipeline active? Where do you see like opportunities? Is it technology? Is it people? Is it contracts? What can you tell us?
So I'll be honest, I'm quite disappointed that we have not done a transaction this year. And given the time frame, I don't see a transaction happening in the next 4 to 5 weeks, right? So I'm pretty confident to say we will not close any deals this year, but we remain very active. So I would say throughout the year, we were fairly active. We found a number of opportunities strategically that made sense, that we wanted to pull the trigger on, but we couldn't agree on valuation. We have very strict, what I call valuation guidelines. I mean, at the most simple level, any transaction has to increase revenue and profit per share, right? But we have a number of other things that we look at, right? We're looking at EBITDA multiples. We're looking at a number of things, future growth plans, because what we learned from our last acquisition is the actual cost of the acquisition is not fully the cost of the acquisition. There's a huge amount of additional costs. For a public company, we've got to get like a PPA, I think they call it, like the purchase price. I don't know what the A stands for, but it's some kind of evaluation of it after. You've got to do all these different things that add cost, and then there's tax burden. So, when we look at the cost of an acquisition, we're trying to look at the all-in, and we want a maximum 3-year payback on it, right? And ideally sub 3 years, but maximum 3-year payback. We just can't afford to look at a longer term because the world is too variable, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen next year, let alone in greater than 3 years. So we're very specific. We're very conservative. But on that, I will say that we have a very full pipeline right now. I'm cautiously optimistic that we've got some deals that are in some, I'll say, mid to advanced stages that could really happen, and they would be transformative. The deals that we're looking at are always going to be strategic, but also provide us additional revenue, profit, and customers. So we look at it strategic from either it's a data company that gets us into new long-term recurring data streams. It's a technology company that provides us more technology to our platform and helps us build this platform. And it will also give us the other things. And we also look for, really core good people. Ideally, we want to increase our leadership team. We can go and hire leaders, but when we can acquire leaders and give an entrepreneur a home at RIWI, where they can not just feel, oh, I'm going to sell my business and then leave, but I'm going to sell my business, I'm going to become part of the global leadership team. I did a great job building something over 5 or 10 years. I want them to feel they have a home here, and I want them to bring that entrepreneurial spirit into the rest of the company, so that everybody at RIWI feels and acts like this is their company, and they should all be entrepreneurs. When that happens and the magic comes together and the culture comes together, and Travis, I'll let him talk about this specifically in a second. He's leading an entire culture initiative at the company to really define our culture and build this entrepreneurial, this collaborative, this, what I'm going to think of the best of Silicon Valley type culture. We are trying to proactively create that, because when that happens, people don't care how many hours they work. They're part of a mission. They're building something for the future, something that they can look back at in 5, 10, 15, 20 years and say, I was part of that. That's what we want to be. Not I worked at here, 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 and here. It's, I helped build that. That's where we really want to get to. So, so anyway, one person has to grab a few things, but it's...
Yeah, no, perfect. I love the way you described it. I think building a team around a mission rather than building a company. That makes a lot of sense. Greg, if I remember correctly, you've been there about a year and a half.
It's about 2 years now.
2 years. Okay, so it's getting on a little bit. What would you say has been sort of the biggest challenge, and then what's been the biggest pleasant surprise within that 2 years at RIWI?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd say, let me start with the biggest surprise from a positive perspective is I think we've got some amazing people, right? Both customers, partners, and customers, quite frankly, right? I mean, some of the people that were here, I am so fortunate to be able to call them my colleagues, right? I mean, they're passionate, they're dedicated, they're incredibly intelligent, and they're focused, right? And so I think that's the part that really gets me excited is every day I wake up and I get to work with these people. And quite frankly, that's a blessing for me, right? And I think we're very fortunate. So I would start there. The stuff that was tough about when we first joined is we're under scale, under resourced, right? I mean, when I joined, we had one person in technology. If that person got hit by a bus crossing the street, the company was over, quite frankly, right? I mean, it was done. Right? There was no ability to continue it. So we have de-risked so much of the business. We have scale in multiple places. I wouldn't say we're at a point where every place has multiple threads. We still have a couple of places that are single-threaded, but they're not as risky as the areas that we had before. So I think we've come a long way. Our CTO Alton has been rebuilding our platform, building a team, and just getting us to a point where we have scale in our technology and we can actually go forward. We have people like Travis in here now that are building, governance, accountability. He talked a little bit about, we had a small blip in our recurring revenue, not because we had any churn, not because of anything else, but because we recognized too much revenue a year ago by mistake because our previous regime on that area maybe was not as meticulous. So we're building really strong corporate governance. We're building really strong financial processes, improving the systems, not just putting process, but automating, our processes across the board, which again is going to help us go from a $4.5, $5 million company to a $10, $15, $20, $30 million company. And I think that's the part that's really rewarding because we're building a base that we can now grow from. I do want to mention one thing that we announced in the press release, not so much in the financial and MD&A, but we did, and just because I like to be absolutely transparent with everything, the good and the bad, right? We did say in the quote specifically that Q3 was fantastic, first profitable quarter in 9 quarters. We do see Q4 as it's going to be a tougher quarter for us. I don't see us taking like massive steps back, but there's going to be it may not be quite the same as Q3. Based on just some of the market dynamics and some of the investments we're making. So I'll be honest, I'm not concerned about it, but I do want to make sure that, we're absolutely transparent that we don't set the expectation that Q3 was that and everything is just straight up from there at a significant growth rate. That's probably not the case. We are a small company. There's going to be this kind of, just like every stock goes up and down on its way up. I think you're going to see us with some of our metrics go up and down but trending up. If you look at it as always on a 6 or 9 month basis, there will be little blips along the way, both positive and negative, but it's not going to be just straight up.
No, I appreciate that. Business is hard, right? I keep reminding everybody there's always ups and downs. It's never a straight line. We're almost at the end of 2023. You always sort of start to look forward when you're at the turn of the year. What do you want to see come this time next year, 2024? What does RIWI look like? And we don't have to talk numbers, but just generally, what do you want to see happen over the course of the next year?
So I'm really hopeful that our platform will be significantly improved and further advanced through a combination of our own core development as well as some M&A. So at this time next year, my goal, assuming we can achieve our goals as a company, we will be a significantly different size company. We will have, our platform will be significantly bigger and more improved. And again, I will always talk about a platform because what we are not trying to do is build an umbrella company of multiple different companies. That's not our goal. We are building a singular platform that will span a whole number of features and an end-to-end process. And so when we look at M&A, it's about bringing these things in, integrating them, and having one singular platform with one customer experience. And so I'm really looking forward to do that. We should also have a significantly bigger team that is starting to, where the cranks are starting to really turn from a sales and a marketing perspective. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping our brand is out there. Today, the majority of our outreach is pure outreach, and the best way to be successful in a company is when people start reaching out to you. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, we're starting to see a little bit of that, not a lot, but we're starting to see a little bit of it. Mm-hmm. And that's also giving me a little bit of positivity that some of the things we're starting to do is starting to resonate. You'll never see us be a Tide or a Crest doing commercials to the mass world, because mm-hmm. the mass world doesn't buy us, right? But we are starting to focus very specific marketing campaigns, thought leadership pieces in very core areas to the people that are our buyers and our buyer personas. And we are slowly starting to build some brand in there. And a good example is one of our sales people was at this conference just like a month and a half ago. It was the corporate buyers conference or corporate researcher conference in Chicago. And a number of organizations came up and said, "Oh, you're with RIWI? Oh, I know RIWI." That doesn't normally happen to us. People are usually come up to us and say, "Wait, how do you say that? Is that RIWI? Is it YY? RIW?" Like, that's the typical question. And we're starting to see some change. I think that is positive.
That's awesome. Yeah, brand recognition, I guess you can call it. So okay, then sort of as investors ourselves now looking in, what do you think are the key metrics or catalysts that we should keep our eyes out for here in the next couple quarters?
So, I think there's a number of things that I'm looking at, right? Obviously, revenue and revenue growth, mm-hmm. right? I think that's an important one. And we are expecting to be a growth company, right? We're not expecting to take steps back and become a shrinking company or anything. So we should be a growth company. So that's one. I think it's always important to look at profitability and to see how we're doing. As I said, there will be some bumpiness in that, but if you look at it on a trend, I think you're going to see a trend over time consistently positive, because we want to control our own destiny. I think you want to look at things like recurring revenue, because a lot of our strategy is about building recurring revenue. One, so we don't have to resell everything every single year, but to give us predictable revenue that we can bank on, and give our investors predictable metrics that they can bank on. Some of the other things we're starting to look at is net customer retention. So that's becoming a bigger focus for us, which is also kind of going into a bit of the other part of the sales focus, which is account management. So we have hunters today. We don't really have account managers, and we will start to build out that account management function, because we do believe that there's a lot more revenue in our existing customers that we're missing. We're just missing it, right? Mm-hmm. And so part of it is building relationships with those customers, being involved, and really understanding what they're trying to accomplish at all aspects. And when you have customers like the World Bank or the World Food Program or USAID or Comonix, these very large organizations, or even Bank of America, they have so many different arms. We tend to be in one piece of those organizations, but we're usually in 5% of the organization. So the opportunity to really grow is significant, but it requires focus, dedication, and effort, right? Mm-hmm. Any other metrics that we are really...
Well, I think it's difficult to put into an external kind of metric, but efficiency in our expense and what we spend, I think mm-hmm. that's been one of my large focuses, after joining the company, is ensuring that we're efficient in our systems and what we're doing with those systems, and trying to remove any make work legacy type of situations that were in place in the past, and making sure that we're built to grow, that we have automation that we have intelligence, and that we're not increasing manual work. So that's certainly the other element of profitability.
Yeah, we know
Perfect.
it's subscale in our tech teams, but we will have to grow that. But as we grow that, they're really focused on automation. So what we don't want to be scaling is operational resources.
Right.
What we want to scale is tech team to build platform automation so that we can take at some point, we may have to triple our tech team as an example over the next number of years. But once we triple it, we should be able to increase our revenue 10x without needing any more operational people, right? Like that's the type of things we really want to get to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Greg, as we wrap up here, any sort of key message or key thing that you want to make sure everybody understands about RIWI and the plans going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a growth company. I think we're a good bet as a company, right? I'm going to say we are keeping our eye on the 5-year prize, right? Not the 1-year prize. So, if you're looking at us as a 1-year investment, I don't know that we're the right company for you. If you're looking at us and you plan to hold for the next 3, 4, 5 years, if that's your time frame, I think we're going to outperform because we are focused on, again, I think I said this last time as well, we have no interest in being a 10 million company or a $50 million company. That is not the goal, right? It's not even as part of our discussions. $30 to $50 million and probably 50 over the next 5 years, that is our goal, right? That is our only goal, with profitability, of course. So, but we're not going to be there next year. We're building to get there, and you should see significant growth. We had good growth this year. I'm anticipating that we will have good growth every year going into the future. But with that, there's always a little bit of the choppiness as we go there. As long as you have the long enough runway and you can look over multiple quarters, I'd say then we are from my perspective, a good investment. And as I said this last time, I will say it again. I continue to put my own money where my mouth is. I continue to buy more. I think you can see it all if you look at it online. And Travis as well has been buying. So the management team is buying. We are vested, and we continue to invest in the company because we believe in what we're doing.
That's fantastic, and true to your word, that's exactly what we've noticed is you guys are putting your money where your mouth is, and you're delivering on what you said. Certainly, the last time we spoke. Listen, I appreciate the time today. As always, love to get updated like this. We've been speaking with Greg Wong, CEO of RIWI Incorporated, and CFO Travis Campbell. Guys, thanks for joining us, and look forward to catching up with you guys real soon.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
See ya.